Hi, thank you for joining me today, and in today's video I'm documenting two photos of my children just lounging together back in 2016 watching something on the computer. I asked James but he can't really remember, he thinks they might have been playing something. So I decided I wanted to go through my scrap bin today and use some of my older papers that are just languishing in there. I didn't want to work with a collection this time. It's something that I do a lot of. Obviously being a shop owner as well, I want to show off collections to their best. And it's easy to scrap with collections because everything's created for you so that everything coordinates really nicely together. But today I just wanted to use some of my older bits and pieces that are lying around. So the photos were printed 3x4 and then I've trimmed them down to approximately 3x3. They're the same day, just at different angles. And I've pulled out some papers that I think will work nicely with the colours in the pictures. I don't know which papers these are. I think the floral one might be a Maggie Holmes, but I'd be guessing at this point. So just tearing off some strips to put along the bottom of the page. If you saw my video last week where I documented Amelia going to see Barbie and Oppenheimer, I created a similar layout where I had some strips across the bottom and I really wanted to keep everything tight to the bottom of the page, but being me, I got a little bit carried away and things went over halfway up the page. So this is take two at that idea that I had in my head of what I wanted to create. So I've just got these strips and keeping them tight to the bottom of the page, and then I'm going to layer those photos across the top of those rather than tucking them underneath the top. You'll see what I mean when I put them down on the page. So I've got two full 12-inch strips and then two little bits that go on either side of the page. I pulled out 4 papers but only wanted 3 strips, so I decided that this would be the way to work it. So now I'm just going through the other scraps that I've pulled out to try and pull in some of this pink that Amelia's got on her t-shirt that she's wearing. They're both still in their pyjamas. I think it's quite early in the morning when I snap these pictures. They just look so cute snuggled up together. So as you can see now, I'm layering them up on top of the papers rather than tucking them underneath the top paper. So here's another one of those pinks, and I'm just using that as a mat again to go underneath the photo. And I'll trim off the excess because I'll be able to use that somewhere else. And then just stick that down, making sure that the words go to the right so that they're tucked underneath the right-hand photo so you wouldn't know that there were words on that sheet. So still trying to work out exactly how to position these. I spot this piece that would work really nicely as a journaling card next to the photos, but in the end I decide against it. I just want to keep the photos as the focal point and layer up some smaller pieces around them, but for now that's going to sit there. And then this is a very old Thickers sheet from American Crafts. It was one of their old Valentine's collections. It could have been a crepe paper one. Again, I forget now because it was quite a while ago, but I just thought that title Love would work really nicely with these photos. So just continuing to map those photos before I mount them onto some foam pads to stick over those paper strips. And so I'm using again that leopard print paper that I've used at the bottom strip, just to build up the mat a little bit because I've got the pink at the bottom and it felt a bit empty without something else on there. So using the other scrap that I have left over on the right hand photo. And then I just need to find something else to put to the right here. So I decided to pull a bit of this grid paper. I just tuck a bit behind there. And I like how that looks, the eclectic look of all the different bits of paper, the neutrals, and then bringing in that pink as well. So using these 25mm sticks 2 foam pads just to raise those pictures up. It provides 2 purposes. First of all, it's making them the focal point of the layout by giving them some height, and it also helps to bridge over the papers, the torn papers that I've got at the bottom, which are slightly rolled so they have a slight texture. Now I'm just playing with the positioning here. I did wonder whether to have the 2 photos on the right hand side and the title on the left, but I really wanted to centralise everything, so I'm going to give that a go. I'm not always great at that. Quite often when I step back and have another look, I'm not quite central, but I think I did a pretty good job this time. It's not too bad at all. So just getting those photos positioned, then I can stick the title down and then continue embellishing once they're down. So there was a bit of blank space of the sofa next to James on the left-hand photo, so the obvious choice was to layer the right photo on top of the left. So So I'm just having a look at what else is on this thicker sheet, and I see the XOXOXO, and I think that will work really nicely at the bottom of the page underneath those photos. So that goes down there, and then that love title across the top. And because I've got the photos slightly offset against one another, I do layer the letters up and down ever so slightly on that love, so it's not completely straight across. So pulling off some of these hearts to embellish on either side of the photos. And I do play about with this a bit. They move a little bit before I'm finished. But I'm just trying to decide exactly what to do at this stage. I haven't looked through any other embellishments yet, so I'm sure I'll bring some other bits in. But here comes the title, and like I say, they are going to go up and down a little bit. They won't be absolutely straight. So I decided that those hearts were a bit too much on the left and right, so they go back onto the sheet, and I pull out these two arrows, which work much better. Black one on the left, and then a pink red one on the right, both pointing into the photos. And now I find these little stickers. I think they were Pretty Little Studio, and there's one that just says together. So I layer that on the bottom left-hand corner of the left-hand photo, and then into this paper that was in my scraps bin, and there's this little heart that says Little Joys on it, and I think that will work really nicely. So just fussy cutting that out, and I'll use that as an embellishment on the left-hand side of those two photos. Nearly there. It was late at night and I was a bit tired, so it took me a bit longer to do that than it normally would. So just at the top of my desk there, I've got some of the wax seals that I created last week. So I'm just enjoying using those on my layouts. I've pulled out a teal blue one with a camera on it, and that works really nicely underneath that left-hand photo. And then I've layered the heart over the top, and then just moving those epoxy hearts so that you can still see them. I wanted to add a tangle of thread underneath that wax seal. I thought that would look really nice. So again, pulling in that pink that Amelia's got on her t-shirt. So just adding a big blob of glue and getting those situated underneath that photo. It works really nicely because the wax seals are lovely and thin. They're very light, and they slip under the photos perfectly when they're up on foam pads. And then on the right hand side, I wanted to echo that circular piece, so I've pulled out one of the Hey Little Magpie Flair badges, and that just says Document Life, and it's in that lovely teal green that I've got in the paper behind it. So again, that works really nicely. So once again, using some tangle thread behind that just to mirror that on the right as I've got it on the left. I like to do that with my elements, not copying what's there, but just sort of trying to use something that's sympathetic to what I've put on the other side. So just getting that all tucked under, and then that's in place. And now I'm going to come in with some of the little fabric flowers and fabric leaves that we've got at Hey Little Magpie in our Bits and Pieces collection, and just tucking those in and around those layers of paper just to build up the embellishments. It adds great texture and interest around the photo. So these leaves are absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure if they're in the shop yet, but they will be if they aren't just yet. And I love those. Just for adding a bit of texture and something a bit different rather than always using florals. So just adding some wet glue to get all those stuck down. Almost there. Probably should have cut this out, sorry. It's a bit boring watching me just gluing things down, isn't it? I'm just adding a bit of glue onto those epoxy pieces because they're quite old and they're over some curled paper, so I wanted to make sure that they stick down. So again, these are from our Bits and Pieces collection at Hey Little Magpie, the little heart and the butterfly. Now I'm pulling out the LE Studio monthly kit because I saw this little flag that says enjoying these moments, and again it's in that lovely teal green, which works really nicely with the rest of it. And the date is just going to be stamped straight onto the paper underneath that. Just so that it's not too in your face, really. I wanted the photos to be the mainstay of this layout. That label that I'm just tucking under there, underneath that E, is a pre-stamped LE Studio label from their label stamps. And I've just used, I think it was saltwater taffy, I think. I'm not quite sure, but it's a pink anyway. And then another one on the left-hand side, and that one is definitely the pink that I use all the time. I'm just Tattered Rose. I was just looking for it on my shelf there. So now scattering in some sequins just from my stash, a few pink ones and then a few rose gold ones in differing sizes. I won't make you watch me glue those down because that really would be too much. So just getting those how I want them, and then they're stuck down. Almost there now, just adding some black Nuvo crystal drops just to bring that black around the page a little bit more, because I've got it on the XOXO and I've got it on the heart on the right hand side. And finally coming in with some Shimmers paints, gold splatter, and that gold is called Good as Gold. It's an Inklings colour and it works really nicely. Just using a number 4 brush to get some really fine splatters all the way across the bottom, including all over that love title. And that's it. I really hope you've enjoyed this layout. I loved pulling out some older stash and mixing and matching rather than using a collection. It's really nice to do that for a change. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do leave me any comments or questions you've got below, and I shall see you again very soon. Thanks again. Bye.